That's the trailhead for, that's where you start for the Echo Mountain Trail. And it's basically 3 up and 3 down, 6 mile round trip, but I can't do that yet. So this is a much easier trail.
It was like a whole new world that I found back here. Driving, keep going back up that street, it just kept going and going and going. I was like,
And Dr. Semple's asked me to talk to you just a little bit about history of the area. And what I'm going to start with is the history of the Brown brothers in Pasadena. Anybody ever heard of John Brown? Right. Who is John Brown?
Well, he stormed Harper's Ferry. He was an abolitionist, and he was expecting a revolution to happen. It was 1859.
Right. And what happened to most of the people that accompanied John Brown on his raid? Hung. Except for one of his sons, who was named Owen Brown, who escaped. He traveled cross-country all the way to Michigan with a group of about 5 guys. One of them got so hungry he went to a farmer's house in Pennsylvania for a piece of pie and got hung in the front yard. They made it to Michigan, where they lived on an island owned by a financier named Gould, who, if you know anything about the 1870s, was a big name in corruption, and apparently lived with guns at his side the whole time. In the 1880s, his sister, and John Brown was fecund, or actually his wives were fecund, and they had lots of kids, and his sister came out here, Ruth, and then she liked it so much that she asked Owen and Jason, who was his other brother, to come out and live out here. Now, if you imagine Pasadena then, it was a town for the rich who wintered out here. And every year, when it got to be September, all the hotels locked up tight. And it was just rich people. And it was also people who had been in the Civil War. And for people who were in the Civil War, they had a very unblemished view of John Brown. He was absolutely a great guy. And his sons were kind of, in their own way, celebrities. And so when Jason and Owen came to town, they were in a carriage, and the men of Pasadena took the horses off the carriage and dragged them up and down Colorado Boulevard, singing the Battle Hymn of the Republic at top volume for 15 minutes. Think about it. I mean, that's amazing. Those are rock stars, right?
And
Well, they hated crowds.
What year roughly?
That was 1886 or 7.
Well after the Civil War.
Well after the Civil War, but if you think about it, all those guys who made their money in bad meat, driving down unions, stealing from the little guy, they were all Civil War veterans. That's where they learned social Darwinism. I mean, you know, survival of the fittest. And they had a lot of money, and they came to Pasadena. So anyway, Owen and Jason really didn't like this. They were hippies. They didn't like any of this. They wanted to go up and be quiet and live and, you know, kind of make a monument to their father. So they looked around for a mountain to name after him. And originally they named Mount Low after him, and then, but McNally, the map guy, said, no, I'm going to give that to Professor Lowe. So they chose to name that right there, Brown Mountain. Now, it's not much of a mountain. It doesn't have a good peak. And actually, the little peaky thing that you're seeing is not Brown Mountain. It's about 200 feet below Brown Mountain. But you do what you did. And they settled right where those trees are, right there. See the trees there just a little bit to the right of the power poles? That was their house, their place. And I actually know where their house was, and it's got an old 54 Chrysler body on top of it. But someday I'm going to get, there's an archaeologist I know from Sanford, and we're going to dig it up and find all the good stuff. Well, they lived there for a long time, and people came to visit them, and they signed autographs. They didn't really like it much, and they started building a trail. And the trail got to about a third of the way up there. It's still there if you know what you're looking for. Mel and I are trail collectors, and we find things like that and just glory in them and get away from all these people. But then Owen, they went to a temperance meeting. They're both big temperance guys, and the person said, "Can you make a contribution?" And they said, "Yeah," but all they had was a quarter. They put their last quarter in the dime. They couldn't take the trolley back. It was raining. Owen got pneumonia and died. Bingo. They buried him. He's buried. Watch out for the car. He's buried. Okay, you see where they lived? He's buried at a little knoll there with a pine tree on it, right behind the lower power pole. That's
Yes.
where he's buried. And that was a focus and shrine for many people. In the 100th anniversary of John Brown's birth, which was 1900, 150 people gathered up there to picnic.
It's just harder, like, you never see somewhere, like, having all of that, just like, bam, you already paid for all of this.
I just can't. It's just raised on like nothing. My mom had 4 gardens, pepper chicken.
Right across the street from where my father first started his private practice across the street.
The guy with the SC cap is a tour
Our
guide.
lease begins June
campus.
1st, but Lonnie will probably come in a couple weeks.
And I'm start. You start training, and then you start the call.
And have you ever